again. Welcome back to our study, Good to Great in God's Eyes. This week we are talking about empowering great people. And I will admit that I was thinking about an icebreaker activity or question. And I was thinking, and I was like, I don't know, I don't know a question or anything to ask. So we're not going to do one. We're just going to jump right in. We're going to read from 2 Timothy chapter 2. If you want to go ahead and turn there, you certainly can to follow along. Remember the context of 2 Timothy. It's written by the apostle. This is the audience participation part of our program. 2 Timothy is written by the apostle Paul. Yep, written to our good friend Timothy. Rockin' and rollin'. And we talked about back in week 3 how Paul and Timothy had one of those mentorship relationships that Paul poured into Timothy's life, so much so that it's now a thing, right? You're like, do you have a Paul? Do you have a Timothy? So this is the original Timothy of the Paul and Timothy relationship. And as far as we can make out, 2 Timothy is the last letter that Paul wrote, as far as we know, before he was executed. So he's writing this from Roman custody, writing to Timothy with his last exhortations. And so in chapter 2 of this final letter, he says to Timothy, "You then, my child, be strengthened by the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also." Now, whenever Chip introduced this material, he was talking about how you can be a good Christian and you can do good things for the Lord, right? And you can serve Him and you can minister in the kingdom, and then you die, right? And he says your life ends with a period. He said, but great Christians end their life with a comma. It doesn't end with the end of their life. They've passed it on. They've left a legacy, imparting that legacy of greatness to others. And I mean, I can quibble with comma. I'm like, well, maybe it's a dash or an ellipsis, the ... to be continued. Like, doesn't that feel even more dramatic? And maybe that's just my personality. But the point is that great Christians empower others to continue to live the life that you yourself have set out. And that's what Paul says to Timothy here. Don't just be strengthened, but in fact, entrust what you have heard from me to others, to faithful people who will be able to teach others also. And so that's what we're talking about today, passing on the legacy. Now, there are plenty of Old and New Testament examples of empowering others. I decided not to go through them because I felt like we nailed that down pretty well whenever we talked about pursuing great people, and we sort of established the biblical precedent of mentor relationships, people pouring into one another. And so we just need to take that principle of people should be poured into and then apply it to our own lives. And so as we take a look here at the practicality of empowering great people, let's first of all just look at some common hindrances. What can stop us from empowering others? First, as Chip talks about in the book, is a lack of discipline. And whenever I initially listened to the chapter, because I always listen to it first and then I read it, I listened to it at 2.5 times speed, which doesn't always serve me well, because then I sort of like catch pieces of it, and then I sort of like I look up and I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And so lack of discipline, I heard that and I was like, lack of discipline. And I was looking in the thing, I'm like, isn't that sort of like lack of focus? Like, what in the world is going on? But the idea of lack of discipline is that we cannot impart what we do not possess. And so in order to help others become great followers of Christ, we have to ourselves be following Christ. And so 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 through 17 says, I urge you then, be imitators of me. If at this point in our going through the book, if we've perhaps gotten stuck on previous chapters and you said, ooh, I don't really know if I'm taking great risks for the Lord. I don't know if I'm pursuing great people. Ooh, I don't know if I'm filling in the blank. Would you be confident to go up to somebody and say, like Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ? Or would you be a little hesitant to say, well, maybe do what I say, not what I do? And so what we don't want to do is we don't want to go around and telling people, hey, pull that little splinter out of your eye while we still have the log sticking out of ours. And so if you are at a point, again, we should always be looking to pour into others. So this isn't a get out of jail free card, right? But certainly we don't want to go around saying, hello, I have it all figured out. If we take a serious look at our own lives and we say, you know what, I think there are some serious areas where I need to continue to be developing that relationship with the Lord. Right? Right? Yes. Yes. Next, we have lack of vision. We oftentimes fail to see beyond the current moment, right? Obviously, right now, my immediate moment, I'm like, okay, baby. And for many of us, even if you don't have young kids, you're just bound up in thinking about how do I survive today, tomorrow, this week. Forget thinking about how is my life going to ripple out and affect the next generation, generations from myself. But in fact, God works not just from one generation to the next, but he's seeing multiple generations down the line, right? Like Leah. Leah is somebody who I think experienced great sorrow, right? She desired the love of her husband. Did she ever get it, as far as we can tell from the scriptural narrative? So it doesn't exactly paint a clear picture, right? But was she the one through whom the Messiah came? Yes. So even though Jacob didn't choose her, God did. Interestingly, it wasn't Rachel, the wife who was loved, through whom the Messiah came. Not through Joseph, the one who rescued the nation, but Judah. The guy who, not exactly an upright figure of sterling character all the time, but it was through Leah. And again, so that's generations and generations later. Did Leah have any idea how God was going to be working through her line? No. Similarly, we, I think, struggle sometimes to think about empowering others because we get nearsightedness and we forget that our God is the God who works generationally. And so we want to be thinking about how the Lord can work in our lives. Next, lack of focus. This can definitely be a struggle. And it's just that it can be for any series of reasons, is that we just get distracted. We're not thinking about it. We're not thinking about, okay, I want to intentionally pour into others. Well, we're just thinking about literally millions of other things. I think perhaps one of the other reasons this sort of balances out the first point, lack of discipline, is pride. So on the other hand, if you walk around and you say, you know what, I'm ready to pour into others because I am a super Christian. I have it all together, and here is my plate of bountiful wisdom, and I am just going to pour it over you. Receive it, my dear child. Most people aren't going to opt into that. Again, first of all, we have the situation where if you're prideful, you are not recognizing the things that are going on in your life, so you're deceived. And so are you really going to be well equipped to help others? Probably, bless you. Not so much, because again, you've been blinded by your own pride. But also, if you're walking around with your baseball bat, and let's say that bat even has the baseball bat of truth embellished on it some of the time, people aren't really going to care because you're smacking them with this bat. They're covered in bruises and they're like, I don't really want to hang out around you. And so certainly as we enter into this conversation of empowering others and pouring into others, we want to make sure that we have that heart of humility at the same time. Right, baby girl? You're supposed to say yes.
I am.
She's like,
Mom.
Not yet. Not yet. We'll get there. Training humility, even from a young age, we got this. All right, so let's talk practically. How then can we empower great people? And right here at the top, I want to give a caveat and say that whenever we're talking about empowering great people, Chip's especially thinking about, okay, we only have so much time in our lives, and so we're doing like these individual relationships. He's not talking about from a ministry standpoint, saying, okay, well, I'm going to, choose, these are the few, the great, the proud of, my ladies group, and I'm only going to pour into them, and I'm not going to pour into anybody else. Ministries exist for people. We never want to, like in James chapter 2, verses 1 through 13, say, ooh, Rebecca over here, she looks like top quality over here. I'm gonna come over here, sit by me. I'm gonna give you all the juicy details, and I'm gonna put, let's do life together. But Beth, oh man, she's got the flower jacket on. I don't know. I don't think that we can make too much of her. We're just gonna. We'll let her sit off in the corner. Maybe we'll exclude her from a couple of those invitations there. She's probably not going to turn out to be a great Christian. We don't want to do that. That's what James calls sin. It's breaking the law. We're showing this. We're exhibiting partiality. Christ's mercy extends to all. Our ministries exist for every person. It's dangerous even to try to judge people's hearts. You don't know how people are going to turn out. I can't tell you the number of times that, and this is like thinking back to primarily youth group is where I saw it, where there are people who seemed like they were going to be on fire for the Lord. They were beautiful inside and out, glowing with excitement, and they graduated and they fell off the face of the earth and they turned their backs on Christ, and their story's not over necessarily, but their story isn't looking the way that we thought that it would. And on the other hand, some blessed children that I encountered while I was in youth group, or whenever I was a youth leader, that I said, oh Lord, it would take a miracle for that kid to turn out. And I look at them today, and they're serving as leaders in the church, and they are doing miraculous things for the kingdom. And at the time, I would not have been able to see it. And so, take this with measured grains of salt to say, again, we're not talking about apportioning out favor to some and excluding others. However, what we are talking about, again, is saying, okay, so in your lives, you're going to cultivate some relationships. How do you decide which people to, which relationships to pour into, and then how do you do that effectively? So, how to empower great people? Invest wisely, because you only have so much time, so much energy, so much emotional, spiritual capacity in your brains. And so where do you start? Start in your own household. Joshua 24:15 says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Deuteronomy chapter 6, the great Shema, we're familiar with that passage. I'm going to read from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. Again, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign in your hand. They shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. It's hard, but it's easy. It's easy because you don't have a choice. You're stuck with the people who are in your house, right? So that the household, whoever's within that space, whatever those confines are, those are the people that you know for sure that the Lord has entrusted to you to equip, to be a model for, to invest in. So take a moment, reflect upon the 4 walls of your house, or the 16 walls of your house, or however many walls your particular house has. I have more than 4 walls. I was like, well, who lives within those walls? Think about maybe your extended family. Who do you come across on a regular basis? Maybe it's, again, grandchildren, cousins, aunts, uncles. Who's within your immediate vicinity that the Lord has put you in touch with? Those are people that we have a responsibility to equip. And honestly, the people that we live with, that we're sort of on a more 24/7 basis with, the degree of impact shifts. I used to tell my mom, and I mean I still tell my mom, but I'm just saying, for a while I would tell my mom that the most important job, the most important role that she had was being a mom. Because I could see the impact that she had in my life and the life of my 2 younger brothers. Not that she didn't have impact outside of our lives, but the time that she invested in us had, I would hope, not just a triple impact, but an impact even beyond that. And similarly, I hope that by standing up in front of you all on Tuesdays and Sundays, that I have some impact. Like, that's my hope and my prayer, that you can take some nuggets away, that I'm able to present the Lord's word in a way that makes sense to your heart and that you change. But the impact that each of you will have on the lives of your children, begone Satan. This is an important thing to say. The impact that each of you have on the lives of the people that you come across in your daily existence can't compare. It can't compare, baby girl. Oh, is that why? Because you left it. It wasn't the devil, it was you. Dangerous lines to cross there, all right. So, outside your household, you get to pick, right? So outside of your household, you have to decide who will you invest in. And again, I will give another caveat, and I will just say that sometimes the Lord calls us to invest in people that it doesn't make sense to invest in. And you're like, Lord, I feel very strongly that you have called me to pour into this person, and they are not acting great. And I'll explain the acronym in just a moment. They seem to be not the type of person that I would want to invest in. And sometimes the Lord calls us to that. And I think he makes it pretty clear whenever that happens. However, again, generally speaking, if we're looking for people to spend some extra time and energy with, to equip, we're looking for people who act great. This is not the acronym that Chip used, because Chip's acronym is, he used FAT. And I was like, I can't, Chip, what? No. His audience is mostly guys, mine is not. So we're going with act great. People need to be available. If you are not here, it is hard to equip you, right? It's hard to do stuff if you're not actually physically present, if you have other priorities. Next, if people are or are not committed. Again, we don't want to necessarily look for people who look bright and shiny, right? So people who are maybe smart, they have great educational background, maybe they have a lot of talent, they have a bright, bubbly personality, and you're like, ooh, they look like somebody that the Lord could really use. That could be deceptive, right? It's not necessarily that God doesn't use people like that, but it's dangerous to make assumptions based on appearances, because the Lord, does he look at appearances? No, he looks at the heart. Good job, front row. Woohoo! He looks at the heart. And so whenever we're sort of, again, it's not that you're saying, is this person worthy of investment, but you're saying, okay, if I invite these people, who's going to come? The people who are going to show up. This is a lot of the thing that sort of people select themselves in, or they select themselves out. Are they committed? Are they showing up? Are they faithful? have they put themselves in a position to grow in that maturity, to steward responsibilities well? If they're doing those things, then those are the types of people that you want to continue to pour into, to continue to equip and to train. Speaking of equipping and training, you want to look for people who are teachable. Because if they already know everything, or so they think, they're not going to receive whatever things that you have to give them. I will give you example, just to sort of put a picture of this, first from rock climbing, and then I'll do a study example. So I used to coach rock climbing, and my favorite classes were my older kids class, where they were kind of decent at climbing, and we would show up, and all of the kids, you're doing great, baby girl, all of the kids would show up, and I would teach all of them. They would all be there, and we would all go through the class together. I would go through, hey, this is the skill that we're working on. This is how you do this skill. Here's a drill that we're all going to do together. Okay, we're going to work on your climbs. And I would go around and I would give them all advice as they were climbing. However, you had the opportunity to target some of those kids for private coaching. And first of all, yes, that was a lucrative opportunity. So if you could get kids' parents to pay you extra money to coach their kids more, that was always exciting. But, if you found kids that you could coach, you needed kids who were willing to be, first of all, available. Because some kids were really good at climbing and they had great capacity, but they were not available to come more than once a week. If they were not available, then there wasn't really anything else I could do. The door was closed. Committed. They also needed to be committed to doing the extra things that would be required, like the extra drills, the push-ups, the many, many, many push-ups, and other not really exciting things that came along with receiving private coaching. They also needed to be teachable, because nothing frustrated me more as a coach than if I told them, try this. And then they went up and did the exact same thing that they did the last 30 times they fell off the wall. And I was like, you know what? Okay then. Well, whenever you tried this other thing, then I guess we'll talk. But otherwise, good luck. And so again, if you're not teachable, then you're not even looking for somebody to come alongside you to equip you, to pour into you. And so, similarly, if you're thinking about maybe a more of a mentorship context, regardless of what that looks like. For me, I am young, but I have an opportunity to mentor specifically in the realm of helping facilitators. So whenever people start facilitating for the first time or start teaching for the first time, then I've had the opportunity to come alongside and say, hey, let's help get you started. Here's some tips and tricks, and etc. Whenever I look for facilitators, you've heard me on Tuesdays say, hey, I'm looking for facilitators. The call's out there. If you want, you can sign up. How many of you have heard me say that? Please, more than one person, raise your hand. Praise God. Okay. And so, whenever I ask that, I'm asking people to volunteer themselves, right? To see if they are available. Now, sometimes I may also, go up to individuals and say, hey, are you available? And if people tell me no, then they select themselves out of that particular mentorship opportunity. It's not that I'm saying you're not worthy of it, that you don't count, you're not whatever. It's just that they're like, I'm not available. Okay, so the people who say I'm available opt into that opportunity. Facilitating, teaching, both things that require some extra time and energy. They require preparation, looking over questions. Teaching especially requires a boatload of study and perhaps PowerPoint preparation, handouts, it's a lot. And so that's something that if people, again, want to opt into that opportunity, if they're pouring themselves into that work, then that's something that we're excited about. We're saying, okay, we'll continue to come alongside you and continue to pour into and equip you.
She's agreeing with you.
Thank you for those raspberries. That's great. I'm here for it. And again, teachable. And it's not to say that if you're ever working with somebody and they are ever if they don't respond well to criticism, or that they, whatever, that you should be like, oh, well then I'm done with you. That's it. You didn't take my constructive criticism well, so I'm out. It's just that you're going to be able to more significantly help people who have a humble spirit, who say, I do want to grow in this area. I'm ready. My hands are open. Whatever you have to give me, I'm going to take it. I'm going to try to put it into practice. Just tends to work out, as opposed to telling my baby to do anything different, because it's like talking to a brick wall at this point, y'all. And I would propose as well, first of all, that we ourselves, if we're looking to pour into others, should be these things, right? We need to be available. We need to be committed. We need to be teachable. If we are not, again, living that out, then we will not be able to impart it.
Anyway, you can't see her.
I know, look, it's great. But I want to, I again though, I want to just do the caveats and the asterisks and say, we really need to be careful about how we go about this. We don't want to just say, okay, well, if these people aren't doing this in the way that I expect them to, then I'm just going to give up on people. Because I will say, there are probably like 75% of the people that I've reached out to, even in this room, to say, hey, would you facilitate? Or are you interested in teaching? Their initial response, again, about 75% of the time, is, ooh, I don't know about that. Hold on. Can I think about that for this round and maybe think about it more next round? And if I was just going strictly off of this, I would say, oh, they're not available. Nope. Oh well. But praise the Lord. Again, I don't know if perhaps I'm just stubborn or if it's the Holy Spirit. I don't know. But I've been able to come back to people and say, hey, have you thought about that more? And they said, you know what? I think I'm ready to give it a whirl. And it's been beautiful to see people stepping in and stepping up and using the gifts and the talents that the Lord has given, which is great. It's exciting. It's beautiful to see people being empowered to do what the Lord has called them to do. And so, very practically speaking, how do we empower great people? Now, Chip proposes 4 things. I'm going to fly through these quickly because, well, the way that Chip teaches it is he does the reverse. So he says, this is how people mentored me, which I felt like mirrored the Pursue Great People lesson. I didn't want to teach the same lesson twice. That felt boring. And it felt weird as well to be like, this is how I've poured into other people. Let me give you an example. Like, it just felt too self-aggrandizing. So I'm going to briefly talk through these, and I'll give you another page of ways to think through these, and I'll give you some extra resources if you so desire. So we have bring them in, build them up, train them for action, and send them out. Essentially, first of all, in order to effectively equip people, they need to be close to you, right? You need to be around them. You need to expose them to the lifestyle that you're living. If you're involved with things at church, like ladies' Bible study, then you'll be exposed. You can expose them. You can say, hey, come along with me to ladies' Bible study. Come along with me to the beach trip. Come with me to wherever. Bring them in. Build them up is just it's encouragement. It's saying, hey, this is where you are strong, perhaps highlighting. This is where you could continue to grow. Training is all about getting them fully equipped. What do they need to know that they don't know yet? What do they not know about their calling that you can clarify? What can you stir up passion-wise in their heart? What practical skills could you equip? Send them out. Anybody who has had children entering the teenage years and beyond can resonate with the experience of, okay, well, I'm going to give you some rope. I'm going to give you a little bit more rope. I'm going to give you a little bit more. I hope this is too much and you don't hang yourself with it. Sometimes sending people out that you have been working with means that they may initially fail. They may fail a couple times. They may make major mistakes. But failure doesn't need to be final, right? And that's the story of our Lord's grace, is that failure isn't final with him because he is a God of second chances. And so whenever you send them out, continue to mentor them even if they are from afar. And some of you who have adult children are doing that even now. Second to last, just wanted to remind you of these different roles that we talked through whenever we were talking about, hey, whenever we pursue great people, these are the things that we're looking for at different parts of our own life, right? To say, hey, who can I tap to be like, hey, I need a cheerleader during this period. I need a confidant. I need a coach in this particular area. It might be even easier to say, hey, I know that I can be this for someone else. And so as you're thinking about specifically, okay, well, there are these people in my life, think through these different roles and think about, go back to that chapter in chapter 3 and think about, okay, well, if these are the type of people to pursue, how can I be that for others? If you are looking for additional resources on mentorship and pouring into other people, there is a study that Chip Ingram actually just finished called You Can Make Disciples. And so I will send that out in the email if you're interested. It's a free resource for you. And then be on standby for additional ministry opportunities coming up as well. And so, again, pouring into others, equipping others happens most naturally in the context of our households, right? In the context of our homes. But as you go into your small groups, I encourage you to think about other people that God has put in your lives. Who are you uniquely positioned to pour into the lives of? God still has work for each one of us. Who are you passing your legacy to? Will you be a period or a comma or an ellipsis or a dash? All right, let's break into groups before I nerd out too much. Thanks for sticking with us tonight. Say bye!